Hi boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Join me today at the garage where there's going to be a little job where the rear pads are needing changed on the 1600 Triumph Thunderbird, thanks to the last owner leaving them pretty much low as you can go, and now that they are metal to metal, kind of getting to that point, they will need changed. And it's a bit of a pig of a job because the back portion of the silencer, the muffler pipe, will have to come off, which will get done. You can see that there's a slight little bit of wear on the discs, so it's definitely time to swap these out. I'm using the EBC sintered pads for this job, so stick around and we will get these pads changed by hell or high water today. Ideally, and from what I've been told, I think it is best to get the wheel out to do this job. I'm just going to try and do the pads and change them with the wheel in, which apparently still can be done, but it's a lot harder. So, always enjoying the challenge. Great, watch this space. Oh. Very fetching. So as I say, I took this rear portion of the pipes off the other day just to get a look at the job. The caliper sits very low on the Thunderbird, as low as possible. Quite a different job from other pads that I've changed before on the likes of the Bobber Black, which was kind of accessible and up here. It's easy enough to get the pipe off. We'll do that first, and then we will move on to trying to see if I can get the bolt to move out the caliper. That seems to be the hardest part of the job at the moment because that appears to be seized. So it's been sprayed and lubricated, and hopefully today it'll move and we can get the pads out and get them changed. Thankfully it's a nice day here today in Glasgow. Got the garage door open, got this old blanket down because literally, as you can see with this caliper being down the bottom, without having a lift, I'm going to be lying on the floor of the garage throughout this gripping video you're about to watch. So there's a wee couple of clamps that hold the pipe on, just loosen all them off. A few of them have actually still been a wee bit loose from the other day when I was checking this job. Holds the pipe on, a couple of 2-part clamps, hex bolt, another big C clamp type, and thankfully at the back there's a 12mm bolt that actually holds the pipe properly onto the frame. Just as well if I'm involved in taking stuff on and off. So there's 3 of these sticking out, then you can get the rear section of the pipe off. Front pads are fine. I've had the front pads off, they're dead easy. Just your normal twin caliper. Twin discs, 2 calipers. The pads have got a wee bit of life left on them, but this one had a wee rear wheel kind of partial lock up the other day. That's what obviously brought it back to me to have a look and get this job underway. Right, that's loose, excuse me. Hopefully I can get these done. Get the bike back out the road. So we're locking nut at the back of the bolt that holds it on to the bike, obviously. Another 12mm bolt further down, forgot about that one. Gave everything a good spray with the WD 40 the other day, so everything should be happy to come free, but said that before. Just talk amongst yourselves while this exhaust comes off. Lefty loose, righty tight, and all that. There we go. Right. A couple of more bolts than I thought. It's a hex here, 12mm. 12mm, hex, 12mm, just to get one portion of the exhaust off. Keeps you fit, this. Feel free to leave any comments. Probably not be complimentary as to not take the wheel out, but feel free to leave any comments on your work with Triumph Thunderbirds, and you can just leave that line loose. We don't need, that shouldn't get in the way of this job. That's where we are now. This clamp is now loose and just sitting there. And this is what we need to take off from here to here. Because it was off the other day, it should just slide out. There we go. Don't make them like that anymore. So that lets us get in to see the job. There's a wee bushing in here that holds the bolt that then holds the exhaust on. Take that off. That gives us access straight through to that pin. This is a pin that has to be removed and knocked through in order to get the pads loose on the caliper. So, as many of you will be aware, there's a wee circlip hiding in there, which has to come out before anything can be done. There we go. That wee guy. Oh, most jobs have got them in holding the actual pin into the caliper, so keep that safe. Keep that very safe. On any removal of pads jobs that you're doing. Right. Not quite how I had imagined having to do this job, but there we go. I don't know if these have been on since day one. This bike's done a lot of miles, but you can now see the pin starting to come out. Hallelujah. That was the problem the other day, it just would not shift. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, the pin is released. Maybe just looking at it the other day and loosening it off. A bit of spray and stuff has helped, but that was the main problem, getting that out. Now we just need to see if the pads are loose enough to be taken out. They're very tight. These pins look, these pads look as if they're like almost grabbing the disc. Need to just get a wee bit of leverage to push the pistons back into the caliper. Obviously you've got to be cautious that you're not going to damage your disc or warp anything. There's actually not really any way to see up into the caliper unless you take it all off, which is definitely what I'm trying to avoid. Let's see if I can get something in there that will pull these pads out. Yeah, baby. Wee bit of brake cleaner here and there just to loosen things off a bit. Obviously watch your brake cleaner near your paint or anything, because that stuff's, you can see there's a bit of movement there already in the caliper. Come on pads, please come out. This would make my life a lot easier. Just trying to push the pads. Maybe a wee issue with this rear caliper with the pistons. Might be needing a rear caliper like service, which is always wise if you can. If I could get this caliper off, that's exactly what I'd be doing, getting the pistons looked at and cleaned properly, but it's just a nightmare job. All I want in life is to get these these pads out. I keep saying pins instead of pads. Pins in the brain. Because ladies and gentlemen, that pin was a nightmare. Just gonna have to clean everything up. Hope that this'll. Oh, there we are. Because the caliper, the pads are a wee bit sticky to come out, I'm just going to try and push the pistons back in when I'm taking these pads out. Definitely metal to metal. My fears, my worst fears have been recognised. These pads were fucking ancient. Check that shit out. Wow, I've got quite a bad record for leaving pads late to be changed, but that's fucking time to change. It was probably time to change when I got the bike. It would have been good if the last keeper would have had the courtesy to say, by the way mate, you definitely need to get your rear pads changed as soon as possible. Thanks mate. didn't want to add that in. My God. There's the other one. Brutal. You see the markings here where it's just been the pistons rubbing on the pad, and there's the other surface. It's been just abusing the disc. Ah, shit. This is how brake pads should look. PVC sintered. Know that. 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 Know that. Help my Bob. Just to make sure there's no squeak, I'll put a wee bit of copper grease on the back of the pads when they go into the caliper, just to stop any friction and stop what appears to be the, you can see here the pistons are definitely working, but just when you've got the pads that doesn't help. So I'll stick some of that on and that'll be lovely. Just a tiny wee drop on the back of each pad, just stops any friction and squeal, brake squeal. Not on this side obviously, that goes without saying. You do not put copper grease onto the side of the pad that will come into contact with your disc. I'm surprised I have to point that out, but you just never know. Just as if you're putting a little bit of butter on your toast there, you see? I like a lot of butter. That's another story. It's not really, it's not a bad idea to put obviously some copper slip, copper grease onto this pin. Make sure it's nice and clean. Should clean it first obviously. Seems clean enough. I think it's just been grime that's been stopping it from coming out of the caliper, but it has now been given a wee bit of a lubricate, and I'll stick some of this on. Keep it lubricated and put it somewhere where it's not going to pick up any crap before reinserting back into the caliper. I just use that Caliper multi-purpose grease. Used that in all my calipers and all my brake work that I've done on Harleys and the Sportsters and the Bobber Black that I had. Sorry, I'm just taking my time here, trying to psych myself up for lying on the floor again. Screwdriver. Feel like a surgeon here. This must be what it's like. That looks good. That looks good there. Yep. You should be able to feel the actual brake pad moving a wee bit. There's a wee spring inside here. Inside the caliper there's a retaining spring. You should be able to feel the pad moving against that. A wee bit moving. That feels great. That's in. There's a bee. There's a big bumblebee floating right into the garage. While I'm trying to change the pads, there's a big bee coming to say hello. Terrifying. As if I've not got enough on my plate. First pad's in, and it feels absolutely spot on. Thank God. Second pad. which was the easier one to get out. Let's see if there's still enough space between the pistons and the disc and stuff. This is the difficulty, you'll be able to see in there. So there's no room to work at all. Other pads in, that looks as if it's lined up nice with where the pin will go. But the back one is maybe just got space issue. This is why. Hello. This is why people say take the wheel out. I just don't have the facility to do that. Ding ding. Round one. This will be a battle. Problem persists here that the back pad is now in, but this front one clearly has got something jamming it, which can only be something to do with the piston. Front bit's going in fine, it's just not getting past the top of the caliper. So I need to try and free all some space to get the pad to go down into the front of the caliper. So I'm going to take a wee break. I don't smoke, but at this point in proceedings, if I smoked, I'd be definitely having a cigarette. This is it. Just need to get something to try and buy a bit of space. The other one's in fine, look at that. That's enjoying its new life in there. Even lined up where the pin will go. Anyway, just before putting these little metal shims that came off the old pads onto the new ones, it's a good idea to use some copper grease rather, and just put that on to stop any squeal. That's been about an hour's work. There was an issue with this bottom caliper that had to be manipulated, shall we say, to annoy it significantly, to push it back into the caliper, to then let me get the two pads in, both seated, and they'll move that wee bit. You see the wee bit of movement when you push them down. That means that the spring is in place, thank God, and the spring is doing its job. So let's see if we can get the pin in and everything goes according to plan. Absolute nightmare of a job. There was quite a lot of build up of crap in my caliper. I think that wasn't helping to get the job. So obviously the pin, as discussed earlier, the pin's been knocked through that way, so the pin will need to be reinserted back. Only issue is when you're reinserting the pin, you need to try and get the pin to go back in so that you can get the circlip aligned, so you need to know where the hole is. What's the chances of knowing where that is? After an hour of trying to get these pins in, these pads in. That was another hour onto the job to get that tiny circlip spring back in, so it's now time to get the exhaust back on. That was brutal, but we've got there. We've got the two pads. It's a full afternoon's work for anybody that's interested in doing this without taking the wheel off. If you can't take the wheel off, like the situation I'm in, welcome to hell. What that'll do is, everything's all buttoned back up, new pads in, pipes all replaced. That will be the last time. Hopefully I have to do that for a long time. Obviously the perfect workshop advice is to get the bike lifted and get the wheel out. I don't have that facility, so these pads have now made it into they'll just be getting kept there as a memento of how not to run a bike with rear pads. Obviously good workshop etiquette after we've finished a job like this, quite a big job, is to go around and just make sure everything that's been loosened, unfastened, in the order that you did it is all resecured, and in particular this caliper. The only thing that securing the caliper that's been loosened, the caliper's been kept on, but the bolt that holds the securing the pads back in, that's been resecured with a wee clip. So we'll get it out now for a quick road test, make sure everything's hunky dory. Know what I mean? Changing any brake pads, you need to just have a very few slow runs, just local, don't jump onto a motorway and go fast, just nice wee easy runabout in the street just to make sure that the pressure's back in the system and that the pads are binding, which mine are. It's lovely, first few presses of the pedal there wasn't, but it's back now. Stop to get fuel, no hassle, everything looks like it's still nice and secure.